Come on in, Clark County. It's Rob Anderson with Reform Clark County. And today we're going to take a closer look at something I shared last week about an Indivisible meeting where 3 Clark County candidates for auditor showed up and made their pitch to this far left, I think, hate group that's in Vancouver. And also the auditor was there and made some interesting statements. We'll take a closer look. Also, we'll turn our attention back to Battleground, where there's a great propaganda campaign going on that's really trying to smear and really propagate Christian hate. And so we'll take a closer look at that, and also some interesting developments that I found out through public records requests. But before we do, hit the like button, the share, get the word out, please. And if you can, go to givesendgo.com, Reform Clark County, and you can support the effort, support the show with a reoccurring or a very super generous one-time gift. So as I mentioned earlier, something very interesting happened in July 9th, and that is that some candidates, 3 candidates for Clark County Auditor, decided to make their pitch at Indivisible Greater Vancouver meeting. But they weren't alone. Auditor Kimsey, the sitting auditor, decided to be there, kind of introduce them, all 3 candidates, I should say of the Democrat persuasion, I guess, Mitchell Kelly, Ty Stober, and Sharon Wiley. But before that, it was just interesting to me that they would decide to support and show up and be a part of a group like Indivisible, which is clearly a hate group. You know, they don't promote violence, but they promote all the hate that drives violence and what we're seeing in the left these days. They hate Trump. They hate ICE. They hate the FBI. They hate Israel, Jews. I mean, the list goes on. I think that they're a hate group, that they practice scholastic terrorism, which is basically labeling and using the rhetoric that seeds the ground, that sets the table for then people to come along, and even if they haven't encouraged violence, to conduct violence out of the hate that's been developed in them. So that's why I call them that. And when, it's interesting that when Democrats call out, hey, show up at Battleground to oppose the anti-ICE or the pro-ICE resolution, Indivisible makes the call out, and Antifa makes the call out. You see almost coordination, or at least in a chorus, that Antifa, Indivisible, and the Clark County Democrats seem to be kind of synchronized, at least, and moving as one in some of these areas. We saw that happen in Battleground. And interesting, the auditor, Auditor Kimsey, seems to be just going along and hitched up to the same wagon. And so in July 9th, he showed up, was a guest speaker at Indivisible meeting. I happened to join through the online portal. They probably will screen me out next time. But I listened to Auditor Kimsey, and as he talked about, the elections that were coming up, and encouraging them to be observers. That's fine. And then he brought up ballot cameras. Security. I think someone asked a question about security, and kind of in a bragging way, I was surprised. Auditor Kimsey talked about how they're installing ballot cameras throughout the county, something that he strongly opposed. And wrote an article in the Reflector saying how much money they'd cost. He inflated the cost. He said it'd be almost $1 million. Turns out it's just under half of that amount to install all the ballot cameras. So he inflated the cost, exaggerated it to try to dissuade or, help the opposition to ballot cameras. This is back in 2024. But here it is, 2026. He's bragging about these ballot cameras to the Indivisible group, and then he did something remarkable. And I shared this last week with my conversation with Eileen. He encouraged them not to use the Postal Service. Now, I don't know if this is because of Trump's plans regarding the post office and using the post office there to kind of screen illegal votes. But he discouraged them to use the post office and strongly suggested that they only use the ballot drop boxes. And I was like, hold the phone. Wait a minute. I mean, this is a major component of mail-in ballots. And you have the Clark County Auditor that's saying, well, maybe we shouldn't use the Postal Service, because, we've had ballots that come in past, that could be counted. That was surprising. So not only, bragging about ballot cameras, which I have no doubt that I played a little bit of a part in that, because after the ballot box attacks, it was obvious that we needed those cameras, and he reversed course. By the way, he blamed the Clark County Council for that, saying, well, they didn't fund it. He got the funding for the ballot box cameras without going to the council. So that tells you that whole excuse, blaming it on the Clark County Council, was just hogwash. He just didn't want it and opposed it. But after the attacks, I will give them credit that they decided that was a good idea. And so that those are going up. But what's interesting too, also that happened. So Kimsey spoke, and then he kind of, stepped aside so that the three candidates, Mitchell Kelly, Ty Stober, and Sharon Wiley, would step up and make their pitch. So Mitchell Kelly got up there, apparently no problem to be involved in Indivisible, made his pitch that, because he's been a bean counter in the back room of the auditor's office, really, that he's qualified for that. So he's been just dealing with that aspect as in very kind of limited perspective there in the business side of the auditor's office. But nonetheless, that was his major pitch. Ty Stober came up and just kind of, so his resume, in my opinion, is pretty light. Just being a Vancouver City Council person, knowing how things really operate. Really, the city manager does everything, and city councilors like that don't do much besides show up and vote yay or nay. But he bragged about his involvement with domestic weddings and gay marriage, and I guess he was involved in, or that's how he kind of got involved in politics, and so he decided to make that the primary reason why they should vote for him, is because he's worked on this, and that's a passion of his, which I found that an interesting resume. And then Sharon Wiley got up and talked about her background and almost in brought up how she's worked in feminism and helping women's rights, and that's good. But again, I just found it interesting that those were the main pitches, and it wasn't auditor really related. I mean, they did talk a little bit about auditor role, but their narrative was they were clearly kind of singing to the choir, preaching to the choir. They were throwing out all the buzzwords that hopefully the Indivisible crowd would kind of catch on to. So I listened to that meeting and heard all of that, and was just really surprised that they would be involved in such a far left hate group. But that's I guess the condition of the Democrat Party here in Clark County, and so those were those candidates, and I thought I'd share that with you. That was fascinating, listening to that meeting. So I want to kind of turn our attention north towards Battleground, because an interesting propaganda campaign is taking place up there. And it's not like what you think. It's by the left, who are trying to dehumanize Christians and really expand their anti-Jewish, rhetoric, their hate towards Jews. They're expanding it towards hate towards Christians, and they're trying to make it seem like, gee, if Christians are involved in politics or if Christians are involved in the community, oh, that's bad. That's real bad. But if you're a secular humanist, if you're a Marxist, if you're, whatever, that's okay. Especially wealthy Marxist or wealthy humanist donors, that's okay. But hey, if you're Christian, we're gonna go after you, and that's what we see. What's happening with Maddox Industrial, with the Spillers, where these attacks are coming directly at them. And I was at the July 3rd fireworks celebration, the 250th celebration of our country, and it was amazing. It's reported that 20,000 people were there, free hot dogs. How can you not like free hot dogs? I mean, free ice cream, free cotton candy. And, all while the left and the Columbian are trying to paint that the Battleground is just full of these Christian localists or nationalists or whatever they want to try to smear it. And it's really a campaign to demonize and it's just a new branch of anti-religion, in particular anti-Christian. So that's at the core of it, is that they want to somehow, vilify the Spillers, vilify Maddox, vilify, Christians being engaged. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you to the Spillers. Thank you to Maddox, to the team there. And don't let up on the gas pedal. Don't let up on this effort. Be engaged in the community. Love the community. And Marxism is a religion, and a lot of people don't realize that the Communist Manifesto was actually entitled Confession of Faith first, and because it's really an anti-God religion for humanists. And so, this attack on Christianity is just Marxist left that are trying to put their views ahead and demonize anyone who's contrary to it. So I say thank you to Maddox Industrial, to the Spillers, to the team there. Thank you for the July 3rd celebration, and keep doing more. Put your foot on the gas pedal and do more, because that's what Christ has called us to do, is to be salt and light to the world and expose the darkness. Good job, Battleground. So that's Reformcast for today. I hope you enjoyed the show, and hit the like button, the share, and get the word out. And also, go to givesendgo.com, put in Reform Clark County, and support the show. It means a lot. I could use the help in that as we get the word out more and more. You can make a reoccurring gift, or you can make a one-time super duper generous gift. So remember, you are the catalyst to reform with God's help. See you next week.